All right, y'all, linear applications test is coming up. Okay, so just as a reminder, this is your investments table. Okay, this is your motion. And this is your, I know mine's messed up, this should be amount. This should be K times A. So this is your mixture. Okay, your word problems are gonna tell you what you're doing. Okay, so this says Becky can ride her bike to the university library in 20 minutes. So if we start at her house, at Becky's house, and she's going to the library, it can take her 20 minutes. Okay, so we know that our first time is 20 minutes. The issue here is we're going miles per hour. So we need to convert these into fractions. So 20 minutes is a third of an hour. So this is my bad. And 30 minutes is a half of an hour. Okay, so I know my other time is half of an hour because on her way back, it takes half of an hour. Okay, her rate is 8 miles per hour faster on her trip there than her trip home. Okay, this is her trip home. Okay, and this is her trip there. Okay, it's 8 miles an hour faster. Okay, because this is when she's going, this is when she's returning. Okay, so we know for distance we're going to multiply these. This one, because of the ugly fraction here, is easier to weight to multiply. So we know we have 1/3 x plus 8, and since we're going the same trip back and forth, we know that the two distances are equal. Equals 1/2 x. So the cool thing is we can get rid of this. What's my LCD? My least common denominator. Both of these can turn into 6. So if I multiply this whole equation, both sides, by 6/1, okay, 6/1, that cancels and gives me 2. Okay, and then the 6 times 1 divided by 2 is 3. So I get 3x. So now we can solve with pretty numbers. Okay, so this gives me 2x, so that gives me 16 because I'm distributing, equals 3x. Okay, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and I get x equals 16. Okay, now before you say this is your answer, you need to double check your question. How far does she live from the library? So we're looking for distance. This is actually my time when I return. So I'm going to plug it in. Okay, so 1/2 times 16. I can plug it into either one. So 0.5 times 16. 0.5 times 16 is 8. So my distance is 8 miles. Okay. All right, let's look at number 2. So it says a chemist wishes to strengthen a mixture that is 10% alcohol to the one that is 40% alcohol. How much pure alcohol should be added to the 12 liters of the 10% mixture? So this is a mixture. It even pretty much tells us this is a mixture. I want you to be careful, okay? I want you to remember this is your have, this is your want, okay? So it tells us a chemist wishes to strengthen a mixture that is 10%. So we have a 10% mixture, but we want to strengthen it, okay, to one that is 40% alcohol. This is what we want. Okay, so our kind here is 40. Remember, I tell y'all to turn your decimals first so that way you don't forget. Okay, so this is our 40% mixture. We want this. Okay, we have a 10% mixture. Now it says how much pure alcohol, so we also have pure alcohol, should be added to 12 liters of the 10% mixture. So we know we have 12 liters. Okay, pure alcohol is 100%. When I turn that into decimal, it becomes 1. Okay, and we don't know this amount. So remember, our total amount is just our amounts added. If we're mixing two things, you combine them, you're adding. Okay, and now we need to multiply to find our K times A. Okay, so these recalculators help you out. So we have 0.10 times 12, which is 1.2. We have 1 times x, which is just 1x. And then we have 0.4, so this is when we distribute. So 0.4 times 12 is 4.8. Okay, and then 0.4 times x is just 0.4x. Okay, so knowing that mixture means we're combining. So I'm taking what I have, 1.2, and I'm adding it to what else I have to create my mixture. Okay, so now that I'm solving, I need to get all my x's on one side, all of my numbers without an x on the other. So I'm going to move my smaller x first. Okay, use your calculator. A lot of y'all are messing up your decimals. 1 minus 0.4, that gives me 0.6. So I get 0.6x. This ends up giving me 0. Now I need to move this 1.2 to the other side. This is a positive, so I'm going to subtract. So I get 4.8 minus 1.2, and I get equals 3.6. So my final step to get my x by itself, so that cancels, is divide both sides by 0.6. 0.6. And that equals 6. So before I say this is my answer, it says how much pure alcohol should be added. Well, pure alcohol is this 100%, this 1, and x is my answer. So this is 6 liters. Okay. Alright, let's look at number 3. Now this is investment because it talks about borrowing money, annual interest, okay, anything like that is going to be investment. So it says a realtor borrowed some money to develop some property. Okay. He was able to borrow $20,000 less at 12%. So I know that $20,000 less means I'm going to subtract $20,000. Okay, from something else. So $20,000 less than what was borrowed at 11%. I don't know what was borrowed at 11%, so we're going to say x. So I'm going to have x minus 20,000 and x for the two amounts borrowed. Okay, so that's my principal. So I have x minus 20,000, and that's at 12%, so 0.12. And that was borrowed. We don't know what was borrowed at 11%. We just know that that was 20,000 less. So if I subtract 20,000, that would be 20,000 less. Okay, the annual interest means time is a year. And then the annual interest on the two loans is $10,250. How much was borrowed at each rate? So we're trying to find our principals. Okay, so knowing that, we're going to set up this equation by multiplying. So I want you to remember, you're multiplying the top row adding that to multiplying the bottom row, and that's equal our interest. Okay, so knowing that, let's simplify each piece of this, each term. Okay, so if I'm going to distribute here, well, anything times 1 is itself, so 0.12 times 1, I can even show it to you, 0.12 times 1, oh, I have to actually type it, 0.12 times 1 is just 0.12, nothing changed, so we can kind of ignore this one. So 0.12 times x gives me 0.12x. Okay, now 0.12 times negative 20,000, so negative 20, 1, 2, 3, times 0.12 is negative 2,400. Okay, plus 0.11 times 1 is 0.11, so 0.11 times x is 0.11x equals 10,250. So now we're going to combine our like terms. Okay, these are both alike because they both have an x. They're also on the same side of the equal sign, so we're not doing opposites. So 0.12 plus 0.11 It's 0.23, so I have 0.23x minus 2400 equals 10,250. Okay, so I'm not done. I need to get all my numbers without an x on the side, so I'm going to add 2400 to both sides. That gives me this. So I'm running out of room, so I'm going to kind of bring it over here. So I have 0.23x equals 12650. And my last step will be to divide by 0.23. Okay. And that gives me 55,000. So x equals 55,000. Okay, now let's see if that's my answer. So my answer is one of my two principles. So I know I have 55,000 at 11%. Now I need to do my 55,000 minus 20,000, and that gives me my other principal, so 35,000. So I have 35,000. These are dollars at 12%. So there is your answer. Okay, you will be given more space in this on your test. Promise, promise. Okay, so let's look at number 4. It says, if 43 ounces of red beads that sell for $6 per ounce are mixed, so this is a mixture problem, with 57 ounces of golden beads that sell for $9 per ounce, what should be the selling price of the mixture of the beads? So, this is my want. This is my mixture. This is what I have. So I have red beads that sell for $6. And I have 43 ounces of those. Okay. And I have golden beads that sell for $9. And I have 57 ounces of that. Okay, what should be the selling price for the mixture? Well, that's what we're trying to figure out, is what is the selling price for the mixture. So in this one, our kind is our price. Okay, and our amount is our ounces. So remember, amount, you just combine, you add. So 43 plus 57 is 100. Okay. So then I'm going to multiply 6 times 43 is 258. 9 times 57 is 513. And 100 times x is 100x. So remember, mixtures are combining, so we're adding. So 258 plus 513 equals 100x. So 258 plus 513. Okay, so after that, we divide. Okay, so we're going to divide both sides by 100. And we get x equals, so 771 divided by 100 is 7.71. So is that what we're asking? X is what we're solving for. What should be the selling price of the mixture? This is my selling price for my mixture. So it's $7.71 per ounce. Okay. So let's look at number 5. If two planes leave an airport at the same time, with one flying west at 680 miles per hour and the other one flying east at 250 miles per hour, how long will it take for them to be 3,720 miles apart? Sorry. So we want them to be apart. They're both starting at the same place. One's flying west, okay, at 680 miles an hour. And one's flying east at 250 miles per hour. And we want their total distance to be 3,720. So I know my two rates. I have 680 and I have 250. I know that they left at the same time, okay, and they're flying the same amount of time. So to find distance, we multiply rate times time. So 680 times x and 250 times x. And I know my total distance, I want it to be 3,720. So that means I'm just adding. because I want this total, one going one way, one going the other. That's this distance and this distance to add up. Okay, so 680 plus 250 is 930. So then 3,720 divided by 930, oop, if I can type it, divided by 930 is 4, because I'm going to divide both sides. And x equals 4. So let's see if that's our answer. It says how long will it take for them to fly, for them to be through, so that's time, so that is my answer. So it's going to be 4 hours, because it's mile per hour. Okay. Any questions? All right. I don't know why I asked that when I'm videoing. Habit. Okay, so now we're looking at trains. It's a motion. Okay, 2 trains are leaving from Houston. 1 train is heading east. Okay, so we have 2 trains. 1 is heading east at 50 miles per hour. So I know my rate of the one going east. And then the other one is heading west, going 70 miles per hour. How long will it take the 2 trains to be 330 miles apart? Well, it doesn't specify. It says 2 trains are leaving, so I'm assuming they're leaving at the same time. Okay, so I get 50x and 70x. This one's going this way. And I want their distance to be 330. So again, distance plus distance. And I want it to be 330. So I have 50x plus 70x equals 330. Okay, so I'm going to combine 50 plus 70 is 120x equals 330. Divide both sides by 120. So I get 330 divided by 120, and that equals 275. So I want you to realize 0.75 is the same as saying 2 3/4. Okay, because think of quarters. I always like to think about quarters. 3 quarters is 75 cents. 4 quarters makes $1. Okay, so I want you to realize that 3/4 of an hour is 45 minutes. So this is 2 hours and 45 minutes. Because that's what we were solving for, is our time. Okay. This one gets confusing because it's wordy. So I want you to just be careful. Okay, how many cups of party mix, that is 64% pretzels, must be added to 40 cups of party mix, that's 40% pretzels, to make, this is what we're making, this is what we want, a 54% pretzels. So 0.54 is what we want. So we have the 0.64 and we have the 0.44, and it even tells us we have 40 cups. That is 44% pretzels. So that's going to be 40 cups. Okay, so this is cups, this is percents. Okay, so it says how many cups of the 64% caramel. So we don't know this. Remember, our total amount is just these two added because we're combining them. Okay, and now we multiply. So this is going to be 0.64x. Okay, here we can get 0.44 times 40. That gives me 17.6. And here we have to distribute. Okay, 0.54x and then 0.54 times 40 is 21.6. So remember, mixtures you add, you're combining. So 0.64x plus 17.6 equals 0.54x plus 21.6. So I want all my x's on one side, and I want all my letters or my numbers without x on the other. So I'm going to move my smallest x first. I'm subtracting because this is positive. Okay, so don't throw off 0.64 minus 0.54, gives me 0.1. Okay, and now I need to move this because I moved my x's on this side, so I need to move my numbers without x on the other. So 21.6 minus 17.6 gives me 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.1, divide 4 by 0.1, and I get x equals 40. So let's see if that's what we're solving for. I was solving for x because it says how many cups of the 64%. Okay, so I know I need 40 cups. Now what if it was asking for my total mixtures amount? So I would do 40 plus 40, which would have been 80 cups. So just be careful. Always pay attention to what the question is asking because it's not always what you're solving. Okay? Alright, let's look at number 8. So we're doing an investment problem. Roberta invested some money at 7% and invested $2,000 more than twice this amount at 10%. Okay? His total annual income from the two investments was $2,900. How much was it invested at 10%? So I know that I have a 7% and I have a 10%. Okay, remember, 7%, you have to move it twice. Be careful with that. Okay, and I know my two investments income, my annual income was $2,900. Okay, I know it's annual, so it's 1 year, 1 year. Okay, I know Roberto invested some money. I don't know how much money at 7%, but he invested $2,000 more, which means plus $2,000, then twice the amount at 7%, so 2x, because we used this invested some money as x. Okay, so this ends up being 2x plus 2,000. Okay, so again, we multiply this times this times this, so we get x times 0.07 times 1 plus our bottom. And it equals our annual income. Okay, so now we're going to simplify our terms. So 0.07 times 1 is 0.07 times x is just 0.07x plus, so this is where we have to distribute. 0.10 times 1 is 0.10, so I'm going to kind of cross this out so we don't get confused. 0.10 times 2x, so 0.10 times 2 is 0.2, so I have 0.2x. And then 0.10 times 2,000 is 200, so plus 200 equals 2,900. So I need to combine like terms on the same side. So I get 0.2 plus 0.07, which gives me 0.27x plus 200 equals 2,900. I'm going to subtract 200 from both sides. So 2,900 minus 200 is 2,700. So I get 0.27x, so I'm going to bring this up here, equals 2,700. I'm going to divide by 0.27. So divide by 0.27, and I get x equals 10,000. Okay, so let's see. How much was invested at 10%? So we want to figure out this number. Okay, so our final answer is going to be plugging our x into this. Okay, so I need to do 2 times x, which is 10,000, plus 2,000. Okay, well, this is something you can type straight in your calculator. So it gives me 22,000. So I'm investing 22,000 at 10%. So be careful. X was not my final answer. My final answer was plugging X into my table. Okay? So number 9 says, James invested $5,000 at 7%. It tells me straight up he invested $5,000 at 7%. And then it tells me he invested $6,500, $6,500 at 9%. Okay? What was his annual income from this investment? So I know that my annual is 1, and I want to know this. I want to know my annual income. So remember, multiply, add, multiply, add. So 5,000 times 0.07 times 1 plus 60. Why did I write a G? 6,500 times 0.09 times 1 equals X. So I'm going to do this one term at a time just because you don't see much on these calculators. 5,000 times 0.07 times 1. Oop, not 0. This gives me 350 plus 6,500 times 0.09 times 1. Gives me 585. Okay, equals X. So 585 plus 350 is 935. Okay, so it's asking for our total, which is just X, so $935 would be their annual income. Okay, look at number 10. 2 cars leave the airport and travel in opposite directions. Okay, so I have the airport and I have 2 cars traveling in opposite directions. So one travels 35 miles per hour. So this is my first car, and their rate is 35 miles per hour. And the other goes the opposite direction, 25 miles per hour. Okay, so my rate is 25. And how many hours will the 2 cars be 100 miles apart? So we know that their total distance will be 100 miles apart. We want from here to here to be 100 miles. Okay, so they left at the same time and they're traveling the same amount of time. So I have X and X for time. So 35 times X is 35X. 25 times X is 25X. And I want them to add to 100. So 35X plus 25X equals 100. Okay, 30, 40, 50, 60X equals 100. Divide both sides by 60. So this is when your calculator is your best friend. Gives me 1.666667. So I want you to realize that this is just 2/3. 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. 2/3 is 0.6 repeating. So this ends up being 1 2/3. Well, 1/3 of an hour is 20 minutes. So this is 1 hour and 40 minutes. Okay. Number 11. How many liters of pure baking soda? So before we even keep going, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do a different color so I don't get stuck. It's 100%. Soda must be added to 200 liters of 30% to get, so we want the 60% baking soda. Okay, so I know that I have 200 liters of 30%. Okay, I also know I have pure baking soda, which if I turn to a decimal is 1 because I move it twice, it becomes 1. Okay, and I don't know, it says how many liters of pure baking soda, so I don't know how many liters, so that's X. Now, X plus 200 is my total amount, and I need to multiply. So 1 times X is 1X. So as your calculator is your best friend. 200 times 0.30 is 60. And down here we have to distribute because we have addition. So 0.6 times x is 0.6x. 0.60 times 200 is 120. Okay, so now I'm adding. I get my top two added to equal my bottom two because I'm mixing. Okay, so I'm going to move my smaller x. This cancels. 1 minus 0.6 is 0.4. Sorry. Okay, and then I'm going to move this 60 to get it away from my x. And I know that equals 60. So I'm going to divide both sides by my 0.4. And I get x equals 150. So it says how many liters of pure baking soda, x represents that, so I'm going to get 150 liters. Okay, so let's flip. Oh, I guess you're not flipping. I'm flipping. Okay, just so you know, I did add a problem. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a second. So it says how much water should be added to 8 milliliters of 6% saline solution to reduce the concentration to 4%. Well, water is kind of, I guess, the opposite of being pure saline. It's 0% saline. So this is 0%. Okay, so how much water should be added to 8 milliliters of 6%? So we want to reduce the concentration. We want the 4%, so 0.04. Okay, we have 8 milliliters of 6%, so 0.068 milliliters, and we're using water, which is 0%. We don't know what amount, okay, and we want it to become 8 plus x. So when I multiply, so you get 0.06 times 8, which is 0.48. Okay, 0 times x is 0x, and then 0.04 times 8 is 0.32. Just remember we're distributing. Okay, and then with mixture we add. Okay, so 0.48 plus 0x equals 0.32 plus 0.04x. Well, guys, y'all, what is 0x? Okay, 0x is nothing, so this goes away. So I have an x over here and no x over here, so I'm going to do minus 0.32. I don't need to move any x's. So I get 0.48 minus 0.32. That gives me 0.16 equals 0.04x. So divide by 0.04. And I get 4. Okay, so x is what I'm solving for. I'm trying to figure out how much water, so it's 4 milliliters. Two planes leave BWI and travel in opposite directions. Okay, so I have them both here at BWI, and they're traveling in opposite directions. Okay, one travels 350 miles per hour. Okay, and the other travels 325. And how many hours will the two planes be 1,800 miles apart? Well, if they left at the same time, they're traveling in opposite directions, they're traveling the same amount of time. So this is 350 x, 325x, and I want their total time or distance to be 1,800 miles. So this needs to add up to 1,800. So 350x plus 325x equals 1,800. Okay, so that gives me 350 plus 325 x divide by 675. So 1800 divided by 675. So 2 2/3. So remember we talked about 0.66 is 2/3. So 2 2/3, which remember a third of an hour is 20 minutes. So 20, 40. So 2 hours, 40 minutes. Okay, this is the last one on your review, but we're going to do one more, and I really want y'all to follow along. Okay, so it says Tim invested some money in 2 plans. Plan 1 is an APR of 6%. So Plan 1 is 6%. Plan 2 is an APR of 11%. If he invested $8,000 more in Plan 1, well, $8,000 more means plus $8,000. Okay, then in Plan 2, so we don't know how much he invested in Plan 2. So Plan 2 plus $8,000 is Plan 1. And his total, his annual income is $20,370. How much did he invest at 11%? So time is 1 because it's annual. Okay, so we're taking the top. It's added to the bottom equals my annual income. Okay, so now we're going to simplify. Remember, 0.06 times 1 is just 0.06, so I'm going to distribute the 0.06. 0.06x and 0.11 times 1 is 0.11 times x is 0.11x. Combine like terms. Get rid of the 480. Divide. And I get this big old number. Okay, so it asks me how much did he invest at 11%. That is what x is. So he invested $117,000 at 11%. Okay, last problem. Okay, this is kind of my own problem, but there is one like this on your test, so I want you to pay attention. I'm just going to really set up the table. The rest you should know how to do. So it says a banker invested $24,000 for a client in 2 mutual funds. So we know his total principal is going to add to $24,000. Okay, one earning 9% and the other earning 14%. After 1 year, the combined interest, so 1 year, is $3,135. How much was invested at each rate? We have no idea both. We cannot use more than one variable because then we can't solve it. So we'll start with x. Well, the opposite of adding would be to subtract. So we're going to do the total minus x, which would solve for that. So that is why that ends up being that. Okay, then we would multiply, 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 plus multiply, multiply, multiply equals this, and you would solve. All right, bring me your questions today after school for tutorials or before your test. Good luck.